Hey everybody, Glenn Curry here at the H2O Studios, high above Public Square. And you know what? Today we are doing, for the very first time, we have an in-studio guest to talk about 80s comedies. And with us today is Oz from 94 Rock. Oz, first of all, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Glenn. I appreciate it.
No problem. Let me pot you down. You're actually louder than I thought you were, but that's fine. So anyway, this is what you and I have been talking about for years when we worked together.
Years and years, yeah.
Again, we're kind of still in the media business, obviously, and you continue to be associated with community broadcasters. But during the times when you and I worked there, particularly at night after my show was over,
exactly.
say around 6 o'clock when Live at 5 was over, you and I would be there just reminiscing about what was going on that day, but more particularly pop culture. You are a pop culture expert. You really are. And I mean that not just with 80s movies and comedies and so forth, like we're about to talk about right now, but also music. Music is your forte, although you don't play any instruments, do you, Oz?
I play the drums, but just haven't played in many years.
And your favorite band, real quick?
Kiss.
Kiss is your favorite band. All right, so that's obvious. Second favorite band. What's your second favorite
Probably Van Halen.
Van Halen. Okay, makes a lot of sense. And by the way, just for the record, I saw something recently on Howard Stern interview of this guy that was dressed up. He was an impersonator as Gene Simmons, and Gene Simmons, of course, he accepted the fact that this is funny and all. But the guy was hilarious. He was dressed in full makeup.
Really? I've heard a guy go on there and do his voice, but not actually dress.
He was dressed up and everything. He talked in that monotone voice, and Gene Simmons is like.
There's a comedian named is it Craig Gass?
Okay. I don't think it was Craig Gass.
This guy does a good impression of him.
And by the way, Craig Gass, boy, unfunny, not funny. No one's funny these days. But we're not here for that. We are here, however, to talk about 80s comedy. So what I did, and again, I don't know his list. This is kind of like Siskel and Ebert. Would you not agree?
Sure. I'm such a movie, whatever you want to call it, that I actually watch old Siskel and Ebert episodes on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, they criticized, I can't remember which one it was, but they tore about Vacation, was it Christmas Vacation? They tore it apart.
They did.
They did.
That episode I never saw.
Yeah.
I try to look for episodes of them reviewing movies that I really like, and just to hear their opinion. That's all.
Yeah, and it's surprising sometimes, movies that later went on to become classics or did very well in the box office, they tore it apart. So, and I guarantee you, of the movies we're about to talk about now, I'm sure they tore it apart too for good reason.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's real difficult to do comedies. Comedies today don't even exist, and if they are, it's usually Will Ferrell or Joshua. Not Joshua. Who's the guy? What's his name? Rogan. What's his name? Dip. He was in the interview with the North Korean.
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen. Sorry, I get him mixed up with Joe Rogan. Too many Rogans in the world. So here we go. All right. So I won't tell you the whole list, but I'll give you a top 80s comedies that came to mind, although I did have to go Google it because I'm an idiot at 58 years old. You didn't. Oz didn't have to do that at all. You just wrote down 11. I asked for 10, you did 11. All right, so let's cover them first base, and then we'll go back and forth, boy, girl, boy, girl. First one I have is Fast Times at Ridgemont High, 1982.
1982, directed by Amy Heckerling, written by Cameron Crowe, who also wrote Jerry Maguire and was also a Rolling Stone writer. Also, the movie Almost Famous, pretty much based on his
life.
Yes.
Right. And by the way, as far as Almost Famous is concerned, that scene where they're going down in an airplane, did that happen at all?
I've only seen that once, and I've never really cared about it after that.
The movie was weak. I mean, I liked it. But again, Cameron Crowe. Okay, so Cameron Crowe, correct me if I'm wrong, did he not go back, or he and other producers went back to high school to learn what high school was?
Well, I believe he wrote the book first.
Okay.
And then the screenplay based off his own book.
Right.
And I can still remember when that movie was playing here in Watertown. I was about 7 years old. I remember seeing it on the marquee.
You didn't see it at 7 years old,
No.
did you? Yeah. By the way, a quick story. My mom and I would go to the movies essentially every Saturday, right up until my 23rd birthday. No, I was kidding. But it was a big thing, and we lived in Queens, and Saturday nights we would walk about a mile to the Haven Theater on Jamaica Avenue. And she would take me to all types of movies over the years. And she was big time, again, I have to credit my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters because they were so into movies and what was good and bad. We were critics, just like you and I.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be a critic. So what does she show me? What does she brings me? She brings me to a double feature, Deliverance and Clockwork Orange.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So we sat there.
What an education.
We sat there. I guess she was, I don't remember how my mom reacted, but we didn't see a Clockwork Orange afterwards. She said, we got to get up and go. She said innocently, and it made a lot of sense. I just thought it was a movie about guys in a canoe going down a river.
I recently watched Clockwork Orange again,
Yeah.
not too long ago, and I have that and Deliverance 70, both, no.
About the same time.
Clockwork Orange 71, Deliverance 72.
Okay.
I got to watch Deliverance again. I haven't seen
Without a
that
doubt.
in
I
quite a
mean,
while.
Deliverance and John,
Director? John Borman.
Oh, Borman. Yeah, I want to call him that.
Who brought us the...
Not the drummer from...
Who brought us
from
that wonderful
Led Zeppelin.
sequel to The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah, The Heretic.
Everybody hates that.
You know what? I like it.
Most people loathe that one.
Yeah, and you know, I liked it because Linda Blair was a couple years older. She looked great. And
She
of course,
did.
She had grown from playing Reagan in the first movie. It wasn't a good movie. It wasn't even close. But, you know, James Earl Jones was in it.
Yes, Linda Blair says that what they shot was not the script she agreed to or saw in the first place. That's why it ended up being a mess.
And Richard Burton was in it, too. But that little thing that would spin around...
Louise Fletcher.
Louise Fletcher, of course.
Pretty much fresh off her Oscar from Cuckoo's Nest.
From Cuckoo's Nest, and again they got her. Who was in the original Exorcist? She kind of looked like Louise Fletcher.
It was Ellen Burstyn.
Ellen Burstyn. She kind of looked like her.
And I think she won an Oscar the year before that for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure she
Martin,
did she win for that?
I don't know, but I think she was. She was nominated for sure. And in addition to that, check that out. Martin Scorsese. I mean, that is not a Martin Scorsese.
I didn't know that for the longest time.
I didn't know it was for the longest time either. And of course the show Alice with what's her face?
Linda Lavin.
Linda Lavin.
That I didn't know it was based off that movie either.
You didn't know that?
For the years ago, I did.
Right. Well, you were young. So
right.
Yeah.
I remember when Alice was on first run episodes. I was just a kid in elementary school.
Right.
Sunday nights, I think, with the Jeffersons. And,
right.
Well, we're getting off the subject.
Yeah, no. This is good. This is exactly, and of course that was in the 70s, although it probably dipped into the 80s. But again, we're talking about 80s comedies for starters. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, we already said Cameron Crowe not only wrote it, but he investigated on how it was in high school life. And again, from someone that was from that generation, although Christ the King, you know, wasn't necessarily Fast Times at Ridgemont High, at least not for yours truly, Glenn Curry, between 77 and 81. But it was a good reflection of the times.
And probably one of the best movie soundtracks I've ever heard.
Without a doubt. And so often, movie soundtracks do make the movie. And it's also better to have a movie soundtrack that's original. But those days are the 80s when Elton John would write an entire score for a movie or whomever. Carly Simon and whatnot would do the theme song. You just don't see that.
Because right on the opening credits, as soon as the Universal thing comes up, it's Go-Go's We Got the Beat.
Don't know.
You get the Jackson Brown song, Somebody's Baby in there.
Right.
Many, many great songs on that one soundtrack.
Yeah, and at the very end of the movie was Who sings that?
Yeah, I think it's right. I think it's Timothy Schmidt from the Eagles had a solo album, and he made the cover of that song.
Did he
it's
really?
called "So in Love" or
So in Love.
That's a great version of that.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it's an old song, right?
Yes, yeah.
I think hopefully I'm not potting up too high. Yesterday I had issues with the Duff Man, so now I might be going overboard. All right, so we moved on from a great movie. First of all,
and started many careers in that movie.
It did. All right, so let's cover the careers from obviously Sean Penn. He was already established. He did Bad Boys, I believe, up until that point.
Taps.
He did other movies, so we all know about Sean Penn. But in addition to that, so many other people.
Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker, who played Jefferson.
Judge Reinhold.
Judge Reinhold, who would later, a year or two later, would be in Beverly Hills Cop.
Anthony Edwards.
Boy, you're rattling them off. And Vic Morrow's daughter, what was her name?
Jennifer Jason Lee.
And
do not forget Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz, who looked like this at one point. No, I have to show myself. No. What was the sign that day? No shoes, no shirt, no dice. Right. Yeah, that was funny. All right. So anyway, who are we missing? Oh, and a young Nicolas Cage.
Phoebe Cates.
Phoebe. How could we forget Phoebe Cates, who was married to
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline.
Yeah,
and they're still married. And by the way, everyone had a fantasy.
One of the few guys to win an Oscar for comedy.
And which one?
Fish Called Wanda.
Fish Called Wanda.
Best supporting actor.
Don't call me stupid.
That's the one.
Yeah, a good movie. No.
I've been meaning to buy that, and I haven't gotten around to it yet because I saw it when it came out on VHS and all that.
By the way, what year?
88.
So wait a minute. What are we talking about? We got to add that. A Fish Called Wanda.
Written by
who?
John Cleese from.
Oh, John Cleese, who's in it?
He wrote the movie too. Yep.
And then who's the other guy? Is that Michael Palin?
Michael Palin's in it.
Palin's in it. He plays the stutterer. Oh, you're a stutterer. Which by today's standards, you couldn't do that movie today.
And that's very funny when he's the scene.
And he's trying to. He
gets mad at him.
He gets mad at him, and then
Yells at him, yeah.
those horrible sequences when they were killing the ladies. They were trying to kill the lady, but they wound up killing. Were they trying to kill the lady or what? What were they trying to do there?
I can't remember.
I mean, for a comedy, it was pretty vicious. So you know, every 10 minutes, some dog was getting crushed. All right, so very good. A lot of people came out of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Hopefully, we're not missing anybody. But Jennifer Jason Leigh would later go on to do great things, including Rush, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And she also did Single White Female, if I'm not mistaken.
Saw that at the theater, too.
And I get her mixed up with Bridget Fonda. I don't know why.
Where is Bridget Fonda?
Yeah, where is Bridget Fonda, Oz? But she was in that movie where she played like some throwaway. She was going to be executed, and I forget the name. It was Harvey Keitel was in it. Do you remember that name? They made her into like a hit woman.
Oh, A Point of No Return.
A Point of No Return. Good movie. I mean, a little, obviously it's a far stretch. But
she had a pretty good run going.
What
throughout
happened?
The 90s.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, and of course, Peter Fonda just died.
Peter Fonda?
Okay, so we're off the beaten path, but I got to ask you this, Oz. Peter Fonda and Vic Morrow. We just mentioned Jennifer Jason Leigh was Vic. That was his daughter. He was in a movie that my friend and I are real big on. I know we're off the beaten path here, but I knew that would happen. Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. What do you think about that movie, Oz?
I actually have it on a double disc with another film with Peter Fonda and Warren Oates.
What was
Race with the Devil.
Never even heard of
They're
it.
getting chased by a satanic cult.
What same year?
1975.
75. And Warren Oates, who died. Well, actually, he died in the 80s after he did Stripes, which is a shame. He was a young man. But did he have that look on his face like he's constipated, Oz? Or
no,
he always had that look like he was always.
It's
pissed
like
off.
your classic '70s drive-in movie.
Right. What was the name?
Race with the Devil.
Race with the Devil. And who could forget?
Loretta Swit plays Peter Fonda's wife in it.
Really, Loretta Swit, that's something. And who could forget at the same time Death Race 2000 with Sylvester Stallone and David Carradine. So, all right. So, but the reason why I bring that up is because we're both Vic Morrow fans, and in that movie, he's in a helicopter in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. Ironically, about 8 years later, he dies making the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, right.
So I posted that on Facebook. I said, "Look at the irony. Here's this road movie with the British actress, by the way. What was her name? Who was Dirty Mary? I'm forgetting her name.
Linda Day George
and Aaron Rourke was the other guy. Yeah, Susan George, British. I don't know. Did you know she was British?
Yep.
Yeah. How many British girls were in movies even before we were born that were playing American roles? And she was one of them. All right, off the beaten path.
I'm going to cross Fast Times off my list because I had that too.
You had that too? You had that too? Okay, makes sense. All right, so I'm going to give you the honors. Next one. What's your movie?
No, I do not consider Fast Times one of the funniest, but I consider it one of the best 80s movies.
Okay. Yes. No doubt. I agree.
Movie I consider one of the funniest of the 80s will go back to 1980. And that's Caddyshack.
Caddyshack, which made my list. I'm going to have to circle that so we don't double up on that. But yes,
a lot of genius behind that, including Harold Ramis.
Right, who wrote it.
Co-wrote it with Brian Doyle Murray, Bill's brother.
Right, who's also the head caddy.
Yeah, he plays Lou,
right,
the guy
Lou.
that runs the Caddyshack. And
he was also in Christmas Vacation as the boss. Go ahead, sorry.
Harold Ramis was involved in so many movies people don't even realize he either was a producer or a writer,
right,
star or director.
Right.
And he shows up a couple more times in my list.
Okay, does he really? All right. So Stripes, what's the year on Stripes, Oz?
The Caddyshack is 80.
No, I checked that. Caddyshack is 1980. Stripes was 81.
81.
All right. But let's sticking with Caddyshack. Why is it? And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that movie could never be made today. Certainly the way it was, and a lot of these movies can't be written today. But why, in your opinion, was Caddyshack such a funny movie and good for the time it was made?
Okay, 1980. So I believe it was summer of 1980. It was a big hit.
Right.
It was like a slobs versus snobs type situation.
True.
Animal House-ish with older people, maybe.
Meatballs.
Right.
Right.
Rodney Dangerfield steals every scene he's in. His first major film.
Yeah.
And he didn't even really know the direction on a movie set. Like
really?
Harold Ramis said, "Action, Rodney." And Rodney was in another room to come into the room to do the scene.
Right.
And he said, "You mean do the bit?"
Well, yeah, so he had
Rodney,
no clue
that's what it
about
means.
blocking.
He had no idea with that. He steals every scene. And the script itself, one of the best comedy scripts of the 80s.
Oh, no question.
Ted Knight is brilliant.
And that's, I'm telling you, I was just going to say that because we're both Ted Knight, otherwise known as Ted Baxter from the Mary Tell Him, Lou. We remember him from that for obvious reasons. So to see him in another role, of course, then he did Too Close for Comfort in the 80s too, with J.J. Bullock, or J.T. Bullock, whatever his name was.
J.M.,
was that what it was?
I think.
And it was awful.
J.M.J.,
but again, to see him play that angry judge in Caddyshack was something. And by the way, I saw him in other things prior to the Mary Tyler Moore. So obviously he was a very good actor. You know, we're talking about an accomplished actor who played Ted Baxter like the goofball that he was, but he was very versatile.
That film, like the start of the 80s reign, if you will, of Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
Chevy had that and Seems Like Old Times in 1980.
And
he just went up from there as far as number of films in a year.
Right.
There was 1 year he did 4 movies. 1985.
Okay, I was going to go back even because when did he do? Check that. When did he do Foul Play?
Foul Play was 78.
78. Okay, so Foul Play was really his first big movie.
Big movie, yes.
Okay. And Goldie Hawn, great movie.
Hawn.
By the way,
Dudley Moore.
Dudley Moore. What's the matter, baby? When was the last time you saw that movie? I can't remember seeing it.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
One day, I'm telling you,
if I could find it, I'd buy it.
One day, I'm going to come, and not that it matters now because it's a gazillion outlets you can get to see movies now. I got Stars, which sucks, but I don't have Netflix because Netflix is just a portal for bad TV shows that I never watched anyway.
I agree.
But there's a lot of movies that you just don't see on TV, and Foul Play is one of them. It's a great movie.
Never on television.
Yeah, and another movie from that same year, Heaven Can Wait. No, you don't see
Never
that.
on TV.
But one movie you do see from Paramount from that year all the time is Grease. And
all
Grease,
the time.
Yeah, and it drives me nuts because
you're right. All of those are Paramount Pictures.
All of them. Oh, I remember that because the summer was 78. Okay, summer of 78. A year after after Travolta, did. Saturday Night Fever. He all of a sudden he started doing a lot of movies. Paramount Pictures was big in '78 with those 3 movies. That was Foul Play, Grease, and
Heaven Can Wait.
And Heaven Can Wait. So 3 big movies. And of course I remember that because my sister used to work at Paramount in GW building in Manhattan. So all right, good. Let's scratch Caddyshack. One of the greatest comedies of all time. Now it's my turn, and I know this is on your list. Trading Places. Is that on your list?
It is. Yep.
All right. So Trading Places is so apropos for today, especially with what happened with GameStop recently. You know, that whole thing about the poor versus the new. There's a bunch of guys that were driving a truck or doing something very, I guess, middle of the road recently that got involved with GameStop that are driving Maseratis right now. So in the story, and again, John Landis, did he not direct? Did
John
he write
Landis,
it?
yes.
He directed it, but did he write it?
No, it was a couple other. I can't remember who wrote the movie, but that's also one of the best scripts.
It's one of the best scripts, and you got to stay in touch with it because at the end, when they go into the World Trade Center, I don't know what's going on, and I read a story that Eddie Murphy had no clue what that whole sequence was all about.
He was still on the show when he did that.
Wow,
that movie.
That makes sense. Sure.
To put him in what he must have thought to be in a film with somebody like Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici at the same time.
Right.
These veterans, these legends.
Right.
And to have them even want to be in that movie, the 2 of them anyway.
Right. And of course, as as a young guy when I saw it, I was somewhat familiar with their faces, but I didn't know their names. I never forgot their names and faces after that. I know Amici did Cocoon a year or so later with Ron Howard.
Won an Oscar for that.
Did he win? Yeah. But those 2 guys, I watched that movie again and again, and every time they're on, they're like the 2 old guys in the Muppet Show and in the upper balcony.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and they remind me of 2 other guys that you and I know in the radio business.
It just looked like that another Paramount film.
Yeah.
It was just, and you said Dan Aykroyd's finest hour. Would you say?
No doubt. And he was in a lot of crappy movies. He was in Dr. Detroit later on. He was in Couch Trip with Walter Matthau. So he did a lot of movies on his own after Belushi died. And, of course, he did the Blues Brothers. But whatever he did, he reminded me of Nathan Lane in a sense. Nathan Lane could be in the worst movie in the world, and he did a lot of them. But he always did it to the max.
Aykroyd plays the best snob.
Yes, he
ever
does. Yeah,
in that Louis Winthorpe.
Yeah, and it was like, sure, he went to Harvard, but just the way he makes that transition, it's Trading Places, and who could forget, of course, I'm forgetting her name all of a sudden.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis, the daughter of Tony Curtis, and when she turns around in the bathroom scene, can you tell me if you remember that scene?
I absolutely love that scene.
Absolutely, I just remember nothing is free or whatever she says, and when she turns around,
you sleep on the couch.
What? Say that again.
And she goes, you sleep on the couch.
And you know what?
She kind of takes her leg and kicks the door.
Yeah, right. And she kicks the door. I felt
she covers herself like this.
Yeah, right. But prior to that, well, anyway, we won't get into it. This is a PG rated show, mind you. But when we saw the movie back in the day, that was very impressive. And I said, wow, that's the same girl from Halloween. Holy mackerel. All right, so let's scratch it off the list.
Okay.
That was, all right. So it's your turn. You're up.
Okay, I'm going to go with Stripes.
All right, Stripes we talked about earlier, 1981.
1981, one of the biggest hits Columbia had, I believe, the entire year.
And Hal Ramis wrote it and partly directed it, or what?
No, I believe he just co-wrote it.
Okay, all right. So Hal Ramis is
involved. No, the director was Ivan Reitman.
Ivan Reitman. Okay, okay. And Ivan Reitman later on, I think, did Howard Stern's movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Meatballs before Stripes.
Right. Okay.
And later Ghostbusters.
And
Private Parts.
Private Parts in 1997. All right, so we're not in that category, but
no. Wait a minute. Ivan Reitman was, I think, a producer. Betty Thomas.
Betty Thomas. So you're right. I misspoke, but I know he had something to do with it. You're right. Betty Thomas from Hill Street Blues, and she did other things as well. Great movie. Probably the best storyline they could have done for Howard Stern in his life. They were going to do other crazy things with Richard Simmons jumping out of a balloon or something. Thank God they didn't do that. So Stripes, a little story. Let me just share one. My brother was a bar manager down in Manhattan, and one day he ran into, on several occasions, for some reason or other, he ran into the same celebrity again. It was Bill Murray. Long story short, he ran into him at a pizzeria in Manhattan, and Bill Murray said, "Hey, I got a movie coming out. You should be on the lookout." I think he said it was Stripes. I don't know if he gave out the title.
Awesome.
But he says, "Be on the lookout. This one's going to be a good one." And sure enough, of course, Stripes, that's a fact check, one of the best. All right, so it's my turn. Stripes is off the list. This is a crazy thing to say, but 48 Hours. Let's get back to Eddie Murphy. What do you think about 48 Hours? Not really a comedy.
That's the only reason it's not on my list. That's because it's not a full comedy. That's the only reason.
All right.
One of the best of that era, yeah.
All right, so his
debut.
Walter Hill, yeah, it was his debut movie. Walter Hill directed that. He also did other movies that you and I like called The Warriors, 1979. Them jumping on the M train, the Coney Island train and whatnot. Good movie.
Hard Times.
But Hard Times, 1975.
About, The Long Riders.
I don't know The Long Riders.
That's a Western from Walter Hill with the Carradine brothers in it. The Keach brothers are in it.
Okay.
Everybody in it was like with their sibling.
Isn't that okay?
And, I haven't seen it in a long time, but that was 1980.
Just almost like Young Guns, isn't it?
Pretty close. It's pretty much the precursor to Young Guns, if you want to say that. Yeah.
Is it easy to get them confused though? I mean, Young Guns, Long Riders, the same movie, or same idea. Western with a bunch of brothers.
Pretty kind of.
Yeah. Okay, but still. All right. So what was 48 Hours?
Yep.
What I liked about it was gritty, but bloody at the so you're laughing at one moment, and then 3 minutes later, there's a shootout scene in the hotel lobby. Don't do it, Jack. Don't do it.
That's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, that's very dramatic. And by the way, that guy, what's his name? The guy, he was in a lot of shows. He was also in Beverly Hills.
Jonathan Banks.
I'm telling you. He should have been a Bond villain because he had that look.
He's a great bad guy in anything he was in. He usually played the heavy or something in it, and he was very, very good at it.
And he was also in that show,
Wise Guy.
Wise Guy. And that guy later on, I don't know if he's still alive. The guy who played Wise Guy,
Ken Wall.
Ken Wall.
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, he got mixed up in some. And speaking of which, let's get back to Caddyshack real quick. The young girl that played the Irish girl, the love interest, where she had her period, she wasn't pregnant.
You're right.
She was the same girl from Animal House with Tom Holtze.
The one who gets put in the shopping cart.
Yeah, and they said, "Hi, Dad."
That's the girl. Yeah.
But she was supposed to have an inspiring career too. There was an article about her how unfortunately she got mixed up with the wrong people. Mo Green, no, whatever, and or Johnny Fontaine, beautiful woman in those two roles are very unforgettable,
very different. I mean, think of her in Animal House, then pulling off an accent like she did in Caddyshack.
Yeah, and
very good.
And again, the Brits they're the greatest actors. There's no question. They pull it off all the time. All right, so
and also something else about 48 Hours. Yeah. Originally, that role was not going to go to Eddie Murphy. Walter Hill did not want a comedian. It was going to be Gregory Hines.
Wow.
It was almost Howard Rollins.
Wow.
And I think maybe Richard Pryor was considered in the early stages of it.
Right.
But it would have been like Rollins or Gregory Hines.
So, and the same thing for Beverly Hills Cop, because that was originally considered for Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
So, could you see Sylvester playing that role would be a different movie.
Apparently, it was going to be a different movie because it was going to be. He wanted it more straightforward action drama type thing. Paramount, I guess, wanted more comedy in it. So he went off and made the movie he wanted to make, which ended up to be Cobra.
Oh God.
And they got Eddie Murphy to make it funnier for Beverly Hills Cop. They outlined the basic story, and then it developed into what Eddie did.
Right. And then, of course, it went on to Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2. How many did they make?
There was 3.
And Landis didn't do the second one, but he did the third one.
Tony Scott actually did the second one.
Tony Scott is Ridley Scott's brother,
director of Top Gun.
And
many films.
Yeah, and did he also do Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, the remake, or am I thinking?
I think he did.
Yeah,
I think he did.
And if I'm not mistaken, Tony Scott, did he take his own life, or we'll have to make sure about that.
Some of these.
Whoever's watching this, it might have to do some fact checking.
Yeah, some. Yes. Some.
All right. So we. Wait, someone's calling me here. Dip. It's probably another bot call looking for something or other. All right. So we just did 48 hours. Get it off. Now it's up to you, Oz. What's your next movie?
Okay. I know you don't like this movie.
Okay.
And I know I've heard you not agree with it, but I still think it's one of the best comedies of the 80s.
Yeah.
And that's Stir Crazy.
Stir Crazy. Yeah. Again, I had great anticipation of this movie. It was hyped up because remember Silver Streak came out a couple years earlier, and everyone was. And I never liked Silver Streak. I didn't think it was that funny. But Stir Crazy. Why do you like Stir Crazy?
I think it's the best pairing of Pryor and Wilder together.
Okay.
It was a ginormous hit for Columbia, summer of 1980.
Sure.
Same summer as Caddyshack.
Yeah.
So that was a good year for summer comedies if you were going to go to the movies.
Sure.
I think they're both brilliant in it. I will say the comedy's more in the first half instead of the second half when they're trying to break out of prison.
Oh, the breaking out of prison. And then as it turns out, they were going to be let out anyway.
And Siskel and Ebert both agreed that part. They say if you want to go for great laughs and strong laughs, go to see it. But the other half kind of leaves you.
Yeah, and
then it takes too long.
And it's the same thing for Stripes. I mean, really, you watch Stripes, but the last 10 minutes when they're in Czechoslovakia, that wait a minute, that's my partner calling. I gotta get rid. I'll talk to him in a little bit. But Stripes got kind of carried.
I love Stripes, but the rescue thing that always turns me off a little bit.
Yeah,
I want stuff at the barracks and the base and the hijinks or whatever you want to call it.
And when John Candy goes, now you see, 3 of a kind, whatever he says, he's explaining it to Tex there. It's like, listen, Tex, don't you ever touch me.
That exchange they all have when they're sitting there introducing themselves to each other, one of the best scenes ever.
It's like when Bill Murray says, chicks dig me. I don't wear any underwear. And it's just, again, that scene,
I do, it's something
unusual. So, unless it's something unusual. And what does Harold Ramis say? I can't remember what he says. He says
he's always been kind of a pacifist. I think his father said, never hit anyone in anger unless you're sure you can get away with it. And when he talks, the other guys are just going,
Yeah, you're right.
They don't even get what he's trying to.
Right. But that's Harold Ramis. That's what Harold. Just not to get off the beaten, but Eugene Levy, his son, just hosted Saturday Night Live.
I watched it. Yeah,
it was good. He's very talented. But unfortunately, and this came up later on Facebook and social media, that Eugene Levy's mom was saying this was the same kid in the late 90s, was picked on at camp. And more than likely he was because, well, he looked like Eugene Levy. I mean, he probably had crazy hair, braces and whatnot, very awkward stage. But it's good to see that he has his father's comic. But that's the same thing with guys like that. Harold Ramis was probably that guy back in the day.
Yeah.
Like Richard Lewis would always talk about his friend there, Jeepers Creepers, the creator of Seinfeld. His name escapes me. Larry David. How they went to camp and beat the crap out of each other. But again, we all went through awkward stages. I know I did. But that's reflective in their movie making and how the comedy was their relief. So Harold Ramis really used that to his advantage.
I mean, he come from SCTV
right.
and National Lampoon magazine, that whole Lampoon organization that put on shows in New York, off Broadway and stuff like that. Harold Ramis was involved in all of that, writing the radio show, National Lampoon Radio Hour.
Right.
He wrote that,
right.
One of the writers and performers on that, and then involved in so many of the great comedies of the 80s. Harold Ramis was involved somehow.
Yeah.
Even if he wasn't in it, he probably co-wrote the script or even directed the movie. I think he's very underrated as far as more recognition.
He's the Barry Gibb of comedies from the 70s and 80s. I mean, because Barry Gibb had his name on every great song between that time.
Just think, Ramis co-wrote Animal House.
Right.
Yeah, co-wrote Meatballs.
Yeah.
Co-wrote and directed Caddyshack. Co-wrote Stripes.
Right.
Co-wrote No, he directed Vacation.
Did you say Animal House?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. It directed Vacation.
Co-wrote and starred in Ghostbusters.
Wow.
Co-wrote Back to School.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
So think of all that I just mentioned.
Right.
That one guy.
Oh, by the way, Back to School didn't make the list. Good movie though. Don't you agree?
On my list.
It's on you. Okay, sorry. It's not on my list. And I'll
86.
tell you why it's not on my list. The guy who played his son, who was also in Christine, what's his name? Carradine. Carradine was his
Keith
last
Gordon.
Was that what it was?
Keith Gordon.
I thought he was a Carradine as well. Maybe I'm confusing with someone else. I'm right on the guy. It's the same guy from Christine, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Miscast.
I think so.
And then who was
No, if, not 1 second do you believe he come from Rodney Dangerfield.
not from Rodney or that he's a swimmer. Of course, no one could believe that Rodney Dangerfield was a star a diver either, but still, it was a comedy. And of course, Sam Kinison in that movie. All right, so it didn't make my list, but it made your list. So let's continue talking about that. Back to School.
Yep.
What year?
86.
Yeah, all right, so 1986. And again, who is it because Rodney Dangerfield is coming off his movie from no, he did a couple movies after Caddyshack. One of which was Easy Money.
On my list.
On your list.
Yes.
Easy
Easy Money,
Money's on your list.
1983, which I think is Rodney's best movie.
All right, so let's jump the gun here. Why is it you feel that Back to School, check that, Easy Money is the best Rodney Dangerfield movie?
Because for one thing, it's a rated R comedy, not
Okay.
PG-13.
Right.
It's just a story of a regular Joe.
Right.
Who, the premise is he has to lose weight, clean up his act to inherit the money from his mother-in-law.
Right.
I'm always going to pick rated R over PG-13 almost every time.
Interesting. Because
Especially for comedy.
Right. Because you can't water down comedy.
And a lot of what you see Rodney in that character comes right from his stage act.
Right.
And I think he's underrated too. He's one of the most brilliant stand-ups I think there ever was.
Oh, no doubt. No.
This is a guy who could work for an hour on stage, blue or not.
Right.
He could have you rolling completely clean material.
Right.
A lot of comics can't do that.
No, they can't.
He could work both ways.
Right.
Filthy or clean. And he just lets loose in Easy Money. It's one of the best comedies of the decade, if not
Joe
of all
Pesci,
time.
by the way. Joe Pesci's in that movie too. And what I like about Joe Pesci in that movie is that he plays Joe Pesci. Really, I mean, he doesn't play Tommy from Goodfellas.
He's very funny in the movie too. Joe Pesci.
He is. He's good, and he's his buddy. So whenever he's in the room, he's that calm, cool guy. He's the straight man in that movie, along with Rodney. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that movie. The one thing I don't like about Pesci is that he did those stupid movies with Macaulay Culkin and the other guy. And then Pesci really stepped out of bounds, in my opinion, when he did the Lethal Weapon movies. Those were really bad. Lethal Weapon with Richard. Check that.
A very annoying
Mel Gibson.
character that he
It's
played.
like, oh yeah, we're gonna be partners, right.
Okay, I can see putting him in the one, but you have to bring him back for every single
one, and he got worse. It's just like Edith Bunker got worse with each and every season.
There's 4 Lethal Weapons, and I think he's in 2 through 4.
I didn't know there were that many. It was too many, and the first one was okay. You watch it now; it's very dated. It's just
the first film.
Yeah, the first one.
Saw that at the theater when it came out. I was like in 7th grade.
It was, it's funny because Lethal Weapon. What is it with Lethal Weapon? That it's this bad guy who lives in Los Angeles on a hill somewhere overlooking the ocean, whichever, and he's got this library. He's got this battery of bad guys in trench coats that we don't know who they are. They all look the same, long hair, and they all have A1. They all have automatic weapons. And that was the beginning of those type of movies where the bad guy just had an arsenal.
How about I know you know who I'm going to talk. I don't know his name. The one long-haired Asian guy who's a bad guy in every one of those. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon. He's in all of them. He's always a bad guy.
Yeah,
the guy with long hair.
Time Cop. Was that the same guy from Time Cop, or
could be?
Or is that the guy that had the Twinkie in Die Hard in the lobby?
He's eating the candy bars
in the candy bar. I thought it was a Twinkie. That's the guy. And he was and rightfully
late
so.
80s especially. He's in. If there's a bad guy or a crew of bad guys, he's in it.
He's in it. Yeah.
I don't know his name though.
Yeah, no, I know exactly who you're talking. The other guy that I was referring to by the way, Time Cop, good movie, terrible ending. It was a TV show. I love time-oriented time travel and so forth. But a lousy ending. But that bad guy from that, I thought that's who you were referring to. All right, so who's up? I think I'm up.
You're up.
All right, so I'm going to pick a movie, and this was, again, when I was looking up comedies from the 80s, just to get my mind configured. Major League, good movie. What are your thoughts?
Good movie.
Yeah.
Funny. That was what, 89, 88?
Yeah, just at the tail end. I thought Wesley Snipes did a great. Now, again, I've seen a lot of baseball movies, a lot of sports movies. I think I really think Major League is the best comedy. Bull Durham was kind of, I don't know, you can't call Bull Durham a comedy. Way overrated in my opinion.
Very overrated. Very overrated.
Susan Sarandon, of course, she was good in it. But at the same time, it annoyed the heck out of me.
Even at my age now, I can still remember the support that movie got, Bull Durham, and everything. So why is it so revered like that?
I don't know. Well, nothing's worse than Field of Dreams. I didn't get Field of Dreams. I got it. But when I watched it, I'm like, this is the movie that's getting all the acclaim. Mm-hmm. And, the guy's running out of money. His character's running out of money. He's going to Fenway Park. He's meeting up with James L. Jones. And he's coming back to the stadium somewhere in Iowa, and all the lights are on. You know what I mean? I mean, just something like that. You're losing money, and you're not playing ball in the cornfield, and you're driving back to your farm. You're going back, and somehow or other, you still have the lights on. Little stuff like that, Oz, drives me nuts. It really does. But again, a movie that I thought was overrated, but definitely didn't.
Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Corbin Burnson.
Yeah, and
Wesley Snipes.
we're getting back to Major League. Yeah, and Wesley Snipes. Yeah, getting back to Major League. Good movie. It's funny. It's cutting. And Wild Thing. Charlie Sheen and the song and everything.
And R-rated, which is a bonus.
So okay. One more time. R-rated movies you will not like. What? So there isn't any comedy that you can appreciate if it's a PG rating.
Oh, I can. I prefer R-rated because you can just go a little further, obviously. But example of a PG.
Yeah.
Made my list.
Yeah.
Is 16 Candles.
16 Candles. You know what? Is that a John Hughes film?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And you're a big John Hughes fan.
Very much so.
All right. So why 16 Candles, Oz?
That is one of the funniest teenage stories I've ever seen, from beginning to end. The people that play the grandparents, Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
After he did Vacation, the first Vacation, some of the best lines I've heard. Also, a lot of the cast members starting out, John Cusack.
Right.
They're all there.
Right.
That is a very realistic portrayal of teenage dialogue, dialogue between a teenager and her grandparents.
Sure.
And the people that play, the guys are on the Twilight Zone. The guy that plays, there's two men on there that play each of her grandparents. Two of the guys, they were on episodes of the Twilight Zone back in the 60s.
Wow. Interesting.
Especially the one guy's on the one where with Cloris Leachman and the little boy who can wish.
Into the Billy Mummy.
The guy that plays the piano.
Yeah.
Is the grandfather on 16 Candles.
Isn't that something?
And the other guy that plays the other grandfather is the guy in the Twilight Zone episode where the car, he hit and run, and the car kept starting.
Oh, yes, yeah, that guy. Yeah. I just saw that recently when he's looking around. That guy, you've seen a lot.
Yep.
Was it Bert Houghton? Because I believe Bert Houghton was a guy that was the producer of the Twilight Zone that was in that episode. I believe he was the one playing the piano. Is that his name?
I don't remember the guy's name.
Right.
But
I know that was that episode.
That's the guy.
Now, again, off the beaten path once again. I knew this would happen. This is great. Twilight Zone. Rod Serling from
Genius.
Binghamton or Tompkins County, whatever. He's from Southern Tier. He actually prefaces that episode. That episode of all the how many years was
it was on for 5 years.
5 years. So let's just say they did over 100 episodes, because back in the day, 22 episodes was the benchmark, I guess. So you did 100 plus episodes. I'd have to say even Rod Serling was probably, just like what Stephen King said about Pet Sematary, he had to put the book away because it was scaring the heck out of him. He prefaced it that day in this episode in so many words was special. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, but that particular episode with Billy Mummy and wishing
I believe it's called "It's a Good Life." Is the name of that episode.
Right.
He went on to do. He was the kid from Lost in Space.
Right.
Cloris Leachman looks great in that.
She does.
What a good-looking lady.
Oh, she was gorgeous. And she just passed away, unfortunately. But we all do eventually. But she had a very good life. Yeah, go ahead.
That's one of my favorite episodes of the Twilight Zone. Also, the guy we get.
Yeah, no, I know we're all over the place, but that's great. It's one of my favorites.
The guy that plays his father in it.
Yeah.
Is the guy who was the mayor? No, the chief of police in Dirty Harry.
In Dirty Harry, yeah, right. And he did a lot of TV work too. It's good to see. Again, watching AMC on Saturdays some time ago, I would watch The Rifleman with Chuck Connors. who died a young man in the 90s and so forth. But to see all the young actors and TV actors, Buddy Hackett played a bad guy. There was one episode with Sammy Davis Jr., who did a tremendous job. So
Yes,
it's good
that's
seeing
true.
that, all those old shows with the young actors. I just saw a scene from El Dorado with James Caan and John Wayne, and this is why Oz and I talk about old movies the way they were. We can go on and on about music, Motown, and everything in relation to hip hop today and what went wrong with urban music and so forth. But we're not here for that. So all right, Major League off the list. All right, you're up. You're up next.
Okay. Mine would be the first film in the series, National Lampoon's Vacation.
Okay, so you say Vacation is on your top 10 comedies in the 80s. Makes a lot of sense. I guess I'm jaded only because Christmas Vacation is superior to that movie. However, it did break a lot of ground. Chevy Chase was excellent in it. Beverly D'Angelo with her overbite and her sexiness and so forth. I didn't get the whole thing with Christy Brinkley, but again, it was a comedy. And
It didn't really need to be there at all.
it didn't need to be there at all, but I just think it was 80s way of saying, hey, was it rated R, Oz?
Yes, it was.
It's
the only one of the series rated R.
So you mean to tell me, wait, hold up. European Vacation wasn't rated R?
PG-13.
It was, and there's a scene in the beginning, the late great John Astin is basically having relations with a young actress who was playing a 15-year-old.
And there's bare chest of a girl later in the movie too.
Yes.
And of girls in a club they're in. They're like
in France somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were topless in that.
Yeah. And
But
it's
it
still
was
got
PG-13.
PG-13.
Yep. But the first film is
Yeah.
the PG-13 didn't exist in 1983. So there was Beverly D'Angelo's shower scene. So there's one scene, and Chevy Chase also says the F word 4 or 5 times in the car later in the movie, which would guarantee you an R rating.
Huh. But you know what? Back in the day, it wasn't in 4. I mean, did you ever go into an R-rated movie when you weren't of age?
No, I had to go with my father to take me.
Okay, so you never went in without an adult to an R-rated movie before you were of age?
I never was able to sneak in. I was always caught by the
the
work
chef,
there,
yeah,
or I never
right.
even attempted.
Right. It's funny, as I say that, I'm thinking in the back of my head, I don't think I did either. But I somehow or other, I think I did. I know this. I told you earlier, I saw Deliverance at the age of 11 with my mom. And I also saw The Godfather the next year in 1972. So that was an R-rated movie. It was the first time I ever saw a naked woman. So that was interesting. Okay, off the beaten path. We did Beverly Hills Cop. It's my turn. I'm going to go with Back to the Future, Oz. What do you think?
Great movie. That's also ahead of its time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Some of the greatest effects I've seen.
Zemeckis.
One of the best stories I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Zemeckis, yep.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg producing, if I remember right.
Yeah, and when you say it's a complicated story, I'm a big It's a Wonderful Life fan. That's such a whimsical tale, and of course it is. But you have to make it all work. You're going, and talking about It's a Wonderful Life. Where you're going into a world that doesn't have George Bailey, so you have to reconfigure that. And they did it great. So when you watch Back to the Future, everything that happens in the future is set up in the past scenes with him as a child. And again, they broke a lot of rules. They just did it so well. Yeah. So and obviously launched. Up until that point, Michael J. Fox was already established with Family Ties. Best opening jingle of the '80s, Family Ties. Do you agree?
Well, the song?
Yes.
A great song. Johnny Mathis, Denise Williams.
I bet you've been together for a million years. Great song.
Good song.
Great
Good
song.
yeah.
All right. So, but again, let's stick with it because in addition to Michael J. Fox's success, it went on to sequels. The sequels I thought were a joke. But nonetheless, it was very well done. And Ronald Reagan appreciated that.
It was going to be Eric Stoltz in the lead.
Yes. Good
And
point.
he actually did some filming of it.
He did. You can go online and see it.
Mm-hmm.
You could go online and see it. Up until the point where he is, I think the very first, I think they shot enough scenes where he's back to his own hometown in the jacket, which everyone thought looked like a life preserver. What are you wearing a life preserver for?
It was the same around that same time.
Yeah.
They are the same year of release as he did Mask.
Oh, really?
Eric Stoltz.
So
They're
because
both
he
from
was-
'85.
So he was a bigger name than Michael J. Fox was. Interestingly enough, Eric Stoltz played brilliantly in The Mask. And although I'm sure Michael J. Fox could have done the same thing, he couldn't have played it like Eric Stoltz. And the same thing goes because of the comic relief and the way Fox delivered himself, and just a DeLorean. You know,
Right.
he was really made for that movie. There's no question.
And then Teen Wolf.
So okay, is Teen Wolf on your list?
No.
Okay. Did you know? Did you know if you look up Teen Wolf, you know what I'm going to say here. All right, it's X-rated. It's It's actually in the movie. Apparently, someone in the stands when they're playing basketball at the end of Teen Wolf is exposing himself.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Look it up on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's at the very end. It's a broad scene, and some guy is up in the stand wherever they shot, probably in Canada.
So I remember right. I think Michael J was filming both films back to back, or simultaneously. I think.
Really?
Teen Wolf and Back to the Future. Yeah.
Yeah, and needless to say, one of them was a lot bigger than the other.
Yes.
But Dobbs from F Troop played his dad, and he was also the same guy that was in The Longest Yard too.
Which I just watched 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
for the Super Bowl, I watched that.
Yeah,
74.
Okay. All right, so we're off the 80s now, but again, going back to the 70s, the original Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds, great gritty movie.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Albert is one of the best wardens of all time.
I hated
How
him.
many movies? Yeah, you hated him. That's the sign of a good actor.
How that he could go from Green Acres.
Yeah.
To being the rotten person that he was in Longest Yard.
And he was rotten to the core.
Yeah.
To
I
the
hated
core.
him at the end.
Yeah. Oh, you hate him. And by the way, he never aged.
No,
remember
he
he
did.
did Switch with Rob. Yeah, it's just like he always looked
Exactly
good.
the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. But you're right. The guy, and we talked earlier about Ted Knight, who played Ted Baxter. He played the goofball Ted, but then he plays the mean guy in a comedy. But it just shows versatility, which is awesome. All right, so and just as a footnote, The Longest Yard, Adam Sandler, the movie should never have been made. We should have another category of movies sequels that should never have been made, or remakes.
Well, I wonder why he even wanted to.
You know why he did? Because here's the thing. Sandler. It's all about Sandler. It's all about him. So it was his opportunity to be the tough guy and try to act like he went to Florida State, like Burt Reynolds did. So he got buffed up for it. But again, to bring in Tracy Morgan as the gay cheerleader. It fell.
And Chris
flat.
Rock playing the part of the guy you mentioned
of Dobbs. Yeah, the guy who gets killed. In the movie.
What was his name in the movie?
I can't remember. Yeah.
Caretaker.
Yeah, Caretaker. Yeah. And Dobbs, by the way, the guy who played Dobbs was really good in the first one. So the first one was much better, much more. But again, neither. Longest Yard was not a comedy. The second one was supposed to be a comedy.
Yeah.
But I guess that's all right. So it's up. Is it up to me? I think I'm running out of new. We talked about. One last one on my list, at least. I think we covered the bases because we do have some overlap, and that's trains, planes, and automobiles. What do you think about that?
Saw it at the movies. Love that. I should. I'm going to put that on my list too.
Okay, that's surprising. It's not on. Okay, it's just an oversight. I get it.
It is.
You'd have to say probably.
John Hughes,
one of the best comedies of all time, and
it
has universal appeal. Not just because it's a Thanksgiving, Christmas movie, whatever, seasonal movie, but it's got one scene after another. Now, to me, the testament to any movie, it has one scene after another that you say, "Oh, this scene, this is the next scene." You're not looking at your watch. You're not. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is constant. Every scene means something, and in Trains, Planes, and Automobiles is the same thing. You agree with that?
I would agree with that. Cisco and Ebert say that that was John Candy's best role.
Oh yeah, no,
They didn't say Uncle Buck. They didn't
right.
say. They said Planes, Trains, Automobiles.
Uncle Buck, and he did, and Summer Rental.
That was his first starring role.
What was it really? Yeah, so that was his first starring role.
Directed by Carl Reiner, 1985.
Right.
John Candy was another one, releasing 2 to 3 movies every year.
Yeah.
Who does that anymore?
No. Well, I mean, you're right. Donald Sutherland did it in the late 70s. He was like him and Elliot Gould were in every movie. I've seen the Great Train Robbery, everything.
I mean, just think of a decent sized movie star,
Right.
doing 3 movies a year,
Right.
like they did back then.
Well, Meryl Streep, Jodie Foster, big time actors that had contracts and were doing a lot of. Jack Nicholson made way too many movies. He did Wolf, which was awful. So yeah, a lot of them got caught up into that. They were making a ton of money. Even Laurence Olivier
Like
back in the day did a lot of crappy movies.
In 85 alone,
Yeah.
Chevy Chase did Spies Like Us,
Yeah, bad.
European Vacation,
Yeah, bad. Worse.
Fletch,
Terrible.
and he was also in the Sesame Street movie Follow That Bird.
Yeah, oh, really? Follow that.
With John Candy was in that too, I think. There's 4 movies
I
in
never
1
heard
year.
of Follow That Bird.
There's 4 movies in 1 year.
Wow.
Now, how do you space those out over months? Every few weeks, you'd be seeing a commercial for the new Chevy Chase
The new
comedy is
Chevy
coming to
Chase-
a theater
Yeah, this one's better than the last one.
every few weeks.
Yeah, and another guy who did a lot of movies all in bunches too was Steve Martin, and he did a lot of bad movies. Was he in McHale's Navy?
I don't the remake, the movie you mean with
Yeah,
isn't that the one with
Fraser Crane was in
Kelsey
it.
Grammer?
Kelsey
yeah.
Grammer.
I don't think he was in it. No, he was Sergeant Bilko.
Sergeant Bilko. You know what? It's funny. I got those two shows mixed up. I got the movies mixed up. But Steve Martin made some bad movies. He made some really good movies. The Jerk
I
was
think
one of them.
Planes, Trains is Steve Martin. I think that might be my favorite Steve Martin role because he's
No
just
doubt.
straight.
Right.
It's straightforward. It's not this goofy,
Right.
screaming, hollering goof running around.
Right.
I think that's the Planes, Trains is my favorite.
I
Steve
got a
Martin role.
movie role for Steve Martin right now. He's in the 70s now, right? He's got to be
believe so,
70
yeah.
something years
Yeah,
old.
early 70s.
Early 70s, and I think he could play an older role. I have a movie role, and I might have mentioned this too. Him and a guy like a Danny DeVito. The movie I have in mind is Breaking 80, about a retired widower who still wants to break 80 in one round of golf of 18 holes before his 80th birthday. What do you say about
yeah,
that?
I like
would
it. I like
a
it.
good idea because he could just be ruffled every time he sees Danny DeVito's character. Oh, here he comes again, and they're living in Florida and whatnot.
I can see that.
Because
I can totally
those
see
type
that.
of movies, Oz, disappeared. We don't see them
Right.
anymore. Once Klugman and Randall were different, but once Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau died, they did all those grumpy old man movies with Burgess Meredith. They were terrible. They weren't that good, but they were big draws because they appealed to the baby boomers and older crowd. Because
Yeah.
those are the guys. And then Morgan Freeman kind of took over to some degree with Jack Nicholson, kicked the can down the road, whatever the hell it was. I must be getting that wrong. But again, they should resurrect that because right now, the movie industry is a mess right now. We don't know what the future looks like. Everything seems to be herky-jerky camera movies and so
Well, you know when something is successful, Hollywood jumps all over, it,
Yes.
especially the studios.
Right.
You had Lemon and Mathau do Grumpy Old Men.
Yes.
Then that was a hit, so now let's do Grumpier Old Men.
Yes, right.
People like that too, so now let's do Out to Sea.
Yeah, right. Wait a
And-
minute, who's in Out to Sea? Who was it the same guys?
Yeah, Lemon and Mathau.
Oh, my God.
Pretty much the same characters in every movie, just different names.
Right.
Then The Odd Couple Part 2.
Awful.
Written by Neil Simon, amazingly.
Right. Was it really?
Which I didn't know he wrote the sequel, which came so many years later.
Decades later.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost as bad as
so there's
Godfather 3
There's
coming out. Yeah.
There's 4 Mathau Lemon movies in pretty much a row, nearly a row, just because of the success of Grumpy Old Men.
And Jack Lemmon went on to do other movies too. He did Glengarry Glen
That's one of my
Ross.
favorite movies of all time.
See, I don't get it, and I know Jim.
I love
Lemmon-
him in it.
You love
Jack Lemmon. in it.
See, now that's this is why there's good discourse going on behind. Jack Lemmon drove me nuts in that movie. I'm gonna
Really?
make the sale. I'm gonna make the sale. Yeah.
He was
Meanwhile,
nominated
the
for
one
that.
I'm sure he was because he was 110 years old at the time, he just drove me nuts. Yeah.
Sometimes I love his acting in Glengarry Glen Ross so much that I'll find just the scene on YouTube just to watch him do that.
Will you
Yes.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
Okay, so that said, would you also say that Alec Baldwin stole the show when he talks about coffees for closers?
That's pretty powerful and written for the movie, not
Right.
in the play.
Really?
That was not in the play.
Oh, that's right. It was a play.
And that was written especially for the movie.
Yeah.
And that's some great stuff.
Kevin Spacey in it.
Everybody in it is great.
Yeah, it just went on and on. To me, it just whatever. And maybe it's because I was in sales and these guys were cutthroat guy. Oh, and Al Pacino, of course.
He has great moments. So is everybody in it does. Alan Arkin,
Alan
Ed
Arkin,
Harris.
Ed Harris is in it. Spacey, blah blah blah. Right around the same time, The Usual Suspects came out around the same time that movie too. I believe, with Kevin Spacey.
I think it's some of the best acting I've ever seen.
Glengarry Glen
Yes.
Ross. Interesting. Okay. All right. So we covered the gambit. What did I miss here? Let me just do this. Fast and Ridgemont High, Trading Places, Stripes, 48 Hours, although debatable whether or not it was a comedy. Caddyshack, Major League, not on your list. Trains, Planes, and Automobiles on your list. No.
Added because of you, yes.
Okay. Thank you. And Beverly Hills Cop.
I have that as like an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I also, I'm surprised you didn't say Coming to America
Yeah. Coming to America.
or Christmas Vacation
By the way,
exclusively.
Coming to America is coming back to
Yeah.
America, apparently. And the every line in the trailer looks like every line from the original movie. I mean, I know you want to reintroduce the characters
And it's
again.
PG-13.
Yeah, it's PG-13. It's like it looks like someone's giving up some booty. You remember this?
I mean, it's a wonder they got everybody back for it. That was almost everybody from the original movie.
from the who died from it? Did any?
I don't think the woman who played Eddie's mother in it is in it.
Okay, all right. Put the sock in it.
Right.
Yeah, she was beautiful too.
I don't know the entire premise of the movie, but how does he have a long lost son? He got married to the girl he wanted to get married to at the end of the first film.
Right.
How's their son long lost?
I don't know. Maybe someone had relations with Jake the body.
Well, they must explain something in it as if maybe he had a moment with somebody and didn't know she. It has to be. I think Leslie Jones plays the mother of the son.
I'm sorry.
Again,
Did
I
you
don't
say
know
Leslie Jones.
I don't know the story.
This is
I
the
don't know
angriest
the
woman
premise
ever.
completely, but I was curious about why they would decide to have him have a long lost son that he has to go find.
Yeah.
Well, when the end of the first movie left you with
Nothing.
yeah,
and he didn't
not
have
even a possibility of that.
Right, and it didn't have any relations with
No.
anyone. They did that whole sequence in the bar scene.
Right.
And you're like, little friend, too.
Yeah.
And Arsenio spits out.
I want to know what the explanation is to have the son he's supposed to be finding.
Well, it's kind of like, we talked briefly about
John Goodman coming back from the dead on Roseanne.
Yeah, wait, say that again. John Goodman coming back from the dead in Roseanne.
Yeah.
And we can also say Larry Hagman was never shot in Jazz JR. It was all a dream. And then what was the other one? There's so many crazy things.
Patrick Duffy in the shower. It was all a dream. He didn't really die in Dallas in the car accident, remember?
That was the same thing, really? They did the same thing with Duffy's character?
Yeah, well, it was Victoria Principal gets up and goes, here's the shower, opens the door, and it's Patrick Duffy there. Bobby
really?
Ewing taking a shower, and he had been dead in a car wreck or something. I'm reaching because I was just a kid when that was on.
I know. Yeah, but they came up.
It was all a dream premise.
Well, and again, when what's his face left Bonanza, he later went on to Trapper John. What was his name?
Pernell Roberts.
Pernell Roberts. When he left the show, they said his excuse was he's taking a trip around the world. In the 19th century, he was going to just leave, Cartwright Ranch there, the Bonanza. And then the other one was John Amos in Good Times. He took a job at working for the Alaska Pipeline. That's how they wrote him off.
And he ended up dying.
Really? They killed his character?
Yeah, they did.
Did they really?
There's a famous scene with Esther Roll.
Yeah. JJ.
They come back from the funeral.
Right.
And she's trying to act like it's not bothering her. The kids know it's bothering her, but she's acting like it doesn't. Then once they leave the room, she throws something across the room.
Wow.
Completely reacting finally to James's death.
Right. And by the way, Good Times, was that a spinoff of, somehow or other, that was a spinoff of All in the Family, right?
Yeah, because Esther Roll was the maid for somebody.
Yeah, but how did that wind up in Chicago? Yeah, right. It was from Maud. Right. Sorry. It wasn't, and Maud was a spinoff
from All in the Family. Because she was Archie's cousin or Edie's cousin or whatever.
Right, and they lived up in, although they show that George Washington Bridge, they lived in Westchester County, which always confused me. I could never understand that. But how did Esther move to the tenement buildings in Chicago when she was associated with Maud in New York?
Right.
But again, we're living in a time when they didn't think people like us years later would ask such questions.
Yeah, because they actually killed John Amos off.
Okay.
That's how they wrote him off, because he wasn't getting along with the writers. And
is that what it was? Was that the real reason?
I believe it was. He didn't like the direction they were taking. Plus, he didn't like the fact that it was all white Jewish writers.
Oh, really?
For a black show.
Right. Like John Amos is on fire there. A good point, because what do they know about inner city life?
Well, that was his point, I think.
Right. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was conflict. I mean, you heard of. So I guess they wrote him off that way. I thought they wrote him. See, I'm mistaken. I thought he was getting a job for the Alaskan Pipeline.
He did do that.
Right.
Again, this is way before my time, because when this was on, I was a baby when that was on.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, it was they wrote him. He was written out because of that. But he did get the job on the pipeline. Right. And then he had died while on the job.
Wow, and that's something. And I guess at that point they figured out he wasn't going to come back. So then they had to do something.
And I was thinking about John Amos too. I mean, look what he did with Coming to America.
Right.
A good role for him.
Right.
And then what was it? 2 years later, he's in Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2 in a lousy role. And by the way, the movie was terrible.
But to get roles like that in big movies that late, if you will, in his career.
True. But just a bad role. I mean, he played the bad general in the plane.
He was also, within that time, you had Coming to America for John Amos.
Yeah.
Then the same year, he was in Lockup with Sylvester Stallone.
I didn't know that.
As one of the prison guards.
Right.
And then 2 years after that, the Die Hard role, Die Hard 2.
We can
All
go
John Emus.
We can go on and on and on. We just covered our top 10, beyond that, comedies of the 80s, and then we squeezed in quite a bit.
Pretty
in
good for
between.
a test out run.
Not bad, really good for a test out run. In fact, we've been on for almost an hour. So let's, I tell you what, Oz, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next category we'll kind of make up as we go along. More than likely, it's going to be in the area of movies and entertainment. But I would really like to cover the bases one day about the difference between music today, not just urban music, not just what we remembered from Motown in the 60s and 70s, but music in the pop culture and where it's gone, because it's gone in the wrong direction. And when you listen to anything from Al Green or anything back in the day, and I play it right there on my little Alexa thing there. I might have said that too loud. Can't wake her up in any given time. Oz, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Once again, Oz is the aficionado about so many things, and you'll see more of him here on the H2O channel here from the H2O studios. We're signing off right now, folks, here on the second floor above the public square. You have a good day. We'll see you soon.